I want to tell you a story, and it's a true story. In May of 1943, a B-24 was flying in the South Pacific on a rescue mission, a search and rescue mission for a downed pilot. While the plane was out searching, it suffered a mechanical failure and crashed into the Pacific. There were only 3 survivors. Those 3 survivors found 2 life rafts and survived in the ocean, adrift at sea for 47 days. Well, 2 of them survived, 1 of them didn't. So these 2 men survived at sea for 47 days, bouncing around in a small life raft in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They finally washed ashore almost 2,000 miles away from their crash site, thinking that they had finally survived and were safe, although terribly malnourished, both having lost about half of their body weight. The Japanese found them and interred them in a POW camp, where they were tortured for the next 2 years. So, crashed in the ocean, survived shark starvation, dehydration, washed ashore, only to be captured and sent into a prison camp where they were tortured for 2 years. At the end of those 2 years, of course, the war was over and they were liberated. So this young man returned home, back to his family in California. From an outside perspective, he was now a free man. He was saved, right? But at night, his horrible, horrible experiences in that POW camp haunted him. And he resorted to alcohol to try to drown out the horrendous nightmares and reliving the torture that he endured. This went on for quite a while. The military had him going around the country trying to drum up money for bonds, but his alcoholic tendencies just kind of made that a non-starter. So this man was lost. He was hurting, and he was hurting those around him. His young wife and his little daughter, he almost lost them. But one night, his wife convinced him to go to a Billy Graham rally, where he accepted Christ and was redeemed. His life turned around that day. He realized that the only way that he could escape the nightmares from the torture was to somehow manage to forgive his captors and his tormentors. He eventually flew back to Japan, and he did just that. He met with those who had been arrested for torturing the American prisoners. And he did the most amazing thing. He forgave them. Every single one of them, including the one who had been the most torturous and had escaped arrest, who ended up actually never having been prosecuted. But even him, this young man forgave. This person's name was Louis Zamperini. He was also well known as an Olympian in the 1936 Berlin Olympics. But to hear his tale at the end of his life, he lived to be 97, by the way. 97 years old. He said that the moment that he forgave his captors and his tormentors, once he realized that that was the key, he never had another nightmare. He was no longer tormented by those memories. That's the amazing power of forgiveness. You know, I've heard people say that holding a grudge or not forgiving is like drinking poison, expecting it to hurt the other person. It doesn't work that way. Forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook. Forgiveness is about healing yourself and the release of that anger and that angst. It's powerful, powerful stuff, forgiveness. If you want to hear more about this story, there were 2 movies made about it. The first one was Unbroken, which details the whole early part of Louis Zamperini's life, including his capture and his release. And then the second movie, which I just watched this evening, was called Unbroken, The Redemption Journey, something like that. Very well done. And my favorite part about watching any kind of a movie that's based on a live event is to be able to see the real people upon whom the movie was made. And they do this at the end of the movie. And it's just delightful to hear this man speak and to hear him tell the story in his own words. And then to see a video clip of him giving his testimony with Billy Graham about how his life was drastically changed. So if you're harboring something in your life, in your heart, that's eating away at you, forgive. It's not easy. Sometimes you have to do it every day until you actually really release it. And you'll have memories about it. But forgiveness, your act of forgiving that other person, heals you. I hope this is helpful to you. It's been helpful in my life, and I'm sure I'm going to have to live it and remember it and learn it over and over again, because people hurt people, right? So choose to forgive. Take care, and God bless.